Good evening and welcome to another night of miniature stuff. Tonight we will not be painting miniatures, instead I'll be assembling some models. Mainly because I need to put together a new crew for Malifaux, because I promised myself and the guy I'm playing with that next time I will not be playing with Perdita. It's a little sad because it would have been nice to have Perdita fully painted, but I'll just have to do that some other time. So I will, as I said, be gluing my fingers together today. Well, hopefully I won't, but you know, it's gonna happen at some point. It always does. That's also why I'm a little zoomed out here, so you can better see what goes on. For those of you who are not used to how miniature painting and miniatures come, they're actually usually delivered unassembled. So I'll go through a little bit of that first and take as an example the guy I painted last time, who is not actually called Arnulf, which I think I called him. Oh, so why don't I have him light here? Hang on. I got these wonderful new lights, so naturally they're not lighting up. Anyway, come on, focus. There we go. That's more like it. So, this little guy here, I called him Arnulf, he's called something else, Haldor, whatever, some other name, doesn't matter. But he's one of the Games Workshop quick assembly, easy fit models that, technically speaking, don't require glue. I like to give him the glue anyway because it makes it so much easier, except that I probably did glue him in the end afterward. But let's take this guy here, for instance, just for comparison. That is Garrick, the leader of the same band. Thank you, Modifian. As you can see here, base comes off really simple, really easy. And if I can just shuffle him loose, the mortal coil, or whatever it is they say in what's it called, Dogma by Kevin Smith. There we go. No, that's one arm coming off. So you can see it just fits in here. Let's go down, let's give it a little bit more light. So you can see, so you just have, this one here plugs in there. Real simple like. Of course, when you cut out the pieces from the sprue that they're on, they're gonna have small bits of pieces that you need to just either scrape off with an X-Acto knife or similar, or just use a set of hobby files, just grind it down. Maybe I'll be able to see that these are a little red, because I've been working on red plastic miniatures. And again, the base just fits straight in. So those are the easy fit models. They're really nice to work with. They're often sort of targeted at everyone, but recommended for beginners, simply because you basically just cut them out and you don't even, strictly speaking, have to sort of grind them down to make them really nice. You can just assemble them, go play with them. So much more easier than what we're going to do today, because today I don't even know which one to start with. Probably this guy here. He is a monster hunter, and I don't actually have the box so we can see the miniature. You can see this is him. You see he's holding out the gun in his right hand, but this one here, that is not his left hand. His left hand is down here, so we need to cut out all of these pieces, clean them up, and then glue them together. And gluing them is really, you just have to sort of put them together, hold them until the glue binds, and then hopefully don't mess it up too much, and hopefully also not glue your fingers together. So we'll start out by glue all the things to myself. Yeah, but then it's going to be so difficult, Modifian, when I'm trying to play with the models and I have to crawl around on the table. It's not really what I want, is it? I know it's what you want. So, but anyway, get a nice pair of electronics wire cutters, or small scale hobby ones. Don't use the full electrician gear that you can use to strip off electrical wire for your house. That's gonna be too coarse really do this. Get some fine ones. As you can see here on top of his hand, there's a small mark left where I cut it off. That's almost impossible to avoid, using the cutters here, but making them as small as possible makes it a lot easier than to just clean them off. Less thing to cut off. So yeah. So this is basically what we'll be doing today, cutting out all these different things and hopefully sticking them back together correctly. And correctly, Modifian, is not to me. Oh, hey, Bill Ben. So you're lurking while you work around the house. Congratulations on getting some housework done. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Just to reiterate, we are assembling miniatures today. And probably going off on a rant about stuff and gear and things. So, anyway, we have the Monster Hunter cut out. What I like to do then is that I actually, as quickly as possible, start cleaning him off, because I can still kind of remember that he was, he had something here, he had 2 dots over here, and then something under his feet. And worst case, I can also go in here and I can see I would not have missed that one, but I can just go in and see, okay, so this is where he was connected to the sprue. That means that this is where we have to do something to clean it up. And as always, we are listening to some very nice music by Adrian von Ziegler. Should be able to see that up in all the way up in the left corner. There. I found a small thingy that I can use to actually show what I'm listening to on Spotify. And Adrian von Ziegler allows you to use his music, at least that's what it says in his copyright notice on his music on YouTube. So as long as it's non-profit and so on, you can use it. You can use it for streams. Go look him up. It's really nice music to have in the background. Hey Wohan, we're not painting tonight, Wohan. We're assembling miniatures for Malifaux. And part of the reason for doing that is that I promised myself and the guy I'm playing with, Wohan, you know who, that next time I'll not be playing with the same crew. So I'll be putting something else together. And if he's watching, then he will know what it is. When I spoke to him yesterday, just chatting, I asked him if he wanted to know, just so he could be a little prepared, read up on it maybe, so he can help me and guide me a little bit better. And he said, no, just keep it a surprise. That's gonna be fine. So I am, but I'm also gonna be assembling the miniatures here. But to begin with, I am actually assembling a couple of other miniatures first, namely the Monster Hunters from Perdita's crew. Just mainly because I bought the box a few months ago actually now, and they've just been sitting around laughing at me, so I want to get it done. Oh, that is awesome! I really hope you could. Do you want to share what you're getting, or hopefully getting? What do you want to play? Is it Dr. Von Stuck? Oh, you don't want to share. That's fine. That's fine. It's gonna be a surprise. So we'll see. So anyway, as you can see here again, I try to do it when cleaning up the miniatures. I try to do it quickly, but also thoroughly. So if you look at the arm again here, I don't know if you remember how it looked, but this looks a lot better. Also, most of you can't remember. This is a thing, after actually getting more into the game and getting a better grasp of it, so it's not just like, okay, now I have a little bit of understanding of how Perdita works when I'm playing with her. I've begun using the Crew Builder app for Malifaux, and it's really nice, it's really good. It has all the cards, you can just look them up, you can filter on keywords and factions and everything. So that's really nice. But then doing that, looking through all the cards and all the masters, just kind of confirms what I already knew, but it just makes it so much more visible perhaps. And that is that we're There's so many miniatures, so many models, so many crews. I mean, if you look at the masters, there are 6 or 8 factions. I cannot even list all of them. There are 6 or 8 factions, and each faction has about I think 8 masters. Some masters exist in different factions, which means that they'll technically, you can skip them if you want to, skip duplicates, but when they're in different factions, they usually run around with different crews. So while the master may have the same stats and abilities, he is effectively completely different, because whatever's backing him up, or her, or it, so whatever's backing up the master is going to be different from faction to faction. So Warren writes that, you had to provide your wishes in a hurry and just drop the link to a gang in some web shop. Well, that is cool. And you're going to be surprised as well. But basically my impression is that all the masters, all the crews are going to be really fun to get to know. I mean, even if you lose the first couple of games because you don't really understand the synergy within a crew, it's still gonna be so much fun because they just have these weird effects. So right, so this is his head. It's popping off now. And I'm not gonna be assembling it sort of piece by piece. I'm gonna be cutting out everything. And then once that is done, then I'm gonna try to dry fit things to make sure it works and see what goes where. And then I'm gonna just use some super glue. I thought about using the liquid plastic cement, whatever it's called, but I really don't want to sit in a fully open window and it smells so horrible. It's not the same gang as I'm running. Yeah, but I got a new gang that we're also assembling tonight. So guess it's not that big of a surprise or secret anymore. But I looked to the Arcanists, specifically Toni Ironsides. So that actually means that I'll be looking at Union people, which is fun because they have the weirdest effects. Like I of course can't remember all of it, but they have a lot of synergy going. So if they have an ability called Unionized, which means that if you start within a certain number of inches from another unionized character, then you get harder to hit or something, or some things don't apply to you because, hey, you're unionized, you gang up, you join together. And that's sort of a very thematic thing to do. Ultimately, it's only a what's it called, a game effect. It's like then you don't get this bonus, or I think they get bonuses to defensive draws, defense and willpower tests if they're close to each other. And that's kind of like this. Yeah, okay, so they get a bonus if they're close to each other, but they're doing it because they're in the same union, and that all of a sudden makes it a thematic effect. I kind of like that. So this guy here, well, okay, so his face. Also, there's always a lot of sort of grit and dust from doing the grinding down of this. But I think that all things considered, I should be able to just glue in the head, if I can actually get it out again. Come on. Get out. I don't want you to fall out after I've painted you. The Victorious. Doesn't ring a bell really. Are we talking people in large dresses, or is the master called Victoria? I should go look it up. So anyway, so that is the head. Now the next thing you want to do when you're gathering or collecting miniatures like this, you want to have a place where you put down all the small bits and pieces like the head so it doesn't run off. I'm just going to use the lens cover. Girls with swords. Ooh, I gotta go look them up. Malifaux, Victoria. Oh, there's one called Victoria. Oh, those people. The Victorias. Yeah. I get it. I get it now. What do they have here? So that's in the that's the Outcasts faction. That looks awesome. Now we're really into bandit territory here. Oh, I look forward to playing against them. Yeah, it's sort of a dual setup. I have no idea how that will work in real life. I also need to look up. I have this somewhere here. Okay, so I'm looking at the build instructions which are available online, and I'm looking at the monster hunters, and it's a different model, so no luck there. I'm basically on my own because there's this thing here that I'm not entirely sure what is. Yeah, whatever. Cut it out, see if it fits anywhere, and just take it from there. So yeah, and again, that's the thing about Malifaux. I think it really is one of those games you need to play it a few times until you really sort of get a grasp for what things can do. And again, I've had so many good stories being told from the games, no matter if I won or lost. You know, having these small glimpses of, hey, this can actually work, giving yourself small goals, of course messing up once in a while, but that can always also be fun. Doing the whole, does it even make sense to try to do this instead of that? It's just, yeah, it's just really cool. So yeah. So a thingy there. I may need to go look up a picture of him at some point. We have a lot of small knives hanging around here. I'm guessing, well, if you're a monster hunter, which is, then obviously you're gonna be loaded down with weapons of all sorts. So yeah, I don't know, this is kind of a boring thing to watch compared to painting, but it is a part of the hobby, and it is an essential part, because if you don't pay anyone or somehow some other way convince people to, you know, collect your miniatures for you, assemble your miniatures for you, you'll be stuck doing this yourself. And the reason I spend a bit of time actually sort of grinding them down is that I've come to regret it when I don't, because these cut marks you get, they can become incredibly visible once you start doing the shading and highlighting, especially if you're doing dry brushes. Then all the cuts from when you cut it out of the sprue, or the leftovers from that, are gonna be sort of raised up, so they're gonna be usually gonna be more visible. It's like if you're doing dry brush over them, they're just gonna catch the brush or the bristles on the brush, and it's gonna give you an effect you're not gonna, you don't want to look for when painting. So being careful about that. I see again, this is why you want to keep them somewhere, because we're already up to 4 small thingies. Now the good thing though about these miniatures here is that they have virtually no mold lines in the sculpts themselves. So I don't normally, or sometimes you'll see, you know, a line running down pretty much where the 2 halves of the mold came together. There's going to be just a line running down, sort of a ridge all the way through the model. Either they design the models so the mold line just blends into the details, or they just have really good mold. And considering the detail and quality of the miniatures, I'm actually gonna guess they have some really good molds. Yeah. Okay, so Wohan prefers to actually assembling the miniatures, cutting out and assembling the miniatures, and painting is a chore. Yeah, I get that. To me, it's sort of a blend. Sometimes I like to do one, sometimes I like to do the other. I think mainly sort of assembling it, and especially if I had to remove mold lines, it's just, I find it tedious and boring work to sit around and scrape all the way through a miniature just to remove a little bit of leftover from an imperfect sort of a molding process. I'm saying mold way too often in this stream. So yeah, so there is that. So in other news, I just went on my Christmas vacation. It started Friday afternoon, and it's going to be great. I'm off for 2 weeks until I have to get back to work. And due to Corona shutdown and things like that, well, not things like that because of that, I don't really have a lot of things going on. I have a single game of Malifaux. I have 2 role-playing sessions, and Christmas Eve I'm meeting up with some of the role players, my extended family. My real family are down south, and I talked a little bit with my sister about it, and she suggested that it might be best, even though we don't have travel bans or travel restrictions, we're still just going for the whole, let's not go between the regions here in Denmark. Things are bad enough as they are, let's not risk it. And we saw each other in the beginning of the month when things were a little better, and we can always just give each other a call or see each other later on. I mean, it takes about an hour and a half to drive down there, so it's not far away. Rohan is writing that he loves trying to tell a story with the pose of the miniatures and end up kit bashing a bit to make them stand out. Kit bashing, for those who don't know, is when you take different bits and pieces from other models and other kits and bash them together, so you don't have the original miniature or sort of unmodified miniature. You do customization. That is really cool, and people will almost always have some kind of bit box, as it's known, where you have small, the extra bits, like some of the Games Workshop models, Citadel models, they'll give you options, so you'll have spare arms, spare heads lying around afterwards, and you can incorporate those into other models. Now see this guy here, he has a sword coming down his back, like so, and even though I will actually be cutting it out, I will not be gluing on the sword because I want to paint that separately, and I want, more importantly, to be able to paint him without the sword getting in the way, like I did with Francisco from the Perdita crew. So yeah. So yeah, but telling a story, especially for skirmish games where you don't have 20 dwarven crossbowmen, or you don't have a regiment of Nuln warriors, engineers, or a squadron of, I don't know, whatever, uniformed and uniform characters, people, miniatures. I remember back in the old days when I started painting, I had an army of dwarfs for Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and part of that was getting the old plastic miniatures. So I was 20 or 30. I think it was probably only 20, completely uniform, dwarven warriors that looked all the same, because there was, back then I did not have any small bits and pieces that I could use to kit bash or customize them. I just only had the models. So my only real choice, with the way the sculpts were made back then, was to decide who had which shield. They had different markings on them, or should they not have shields at all. And since I wanted the models to actually have shield in game, rules wise, you're supposed to have all the real actual weapons they use should also be visible in the models. Some people play with that strictly, so other people don't. If you play casual, it doesn't matter. But I wanted them to have the shields because it made sense. So there wasn't a lot of customization going on for me with that squad. So it's just 20 dwarves being assembled in the same way, being painted in the same way, and it was just assembly line work. It was kind of good for sort of, you know, practicing brush strokes and the different techniques. Unfortunately, I didn't use the right techniques back then. I didn't, you know, do proper highlighting. I mainly just painted the base coat, shaded, and then did the dry brush if I did any kind of highlighting. And the dry brushing was mainly just metallic effect on chainmail weapons and so on. So yeah. So, but yeah, telling a story with the pose and the extra gear you do if you're customizing the bases for Malifaux. These are the bases you get. So just to show one of them, it's plain, it's black. There's a little bit of ridge around the edge, but that's it. Not much underneath, just says weird, because that's the company doing the Malifaux game. And in contrast, let's do the painted guy again. I mean, in contrast, you take this guy here, the miniature formerly known as Arnulf. And if my camera would be nice, you see you have a full 3D effect in the base. You have some skulls lying on the ground. You have the cracks in the ground and all that. Maybe a little bit more light here makes it more clear. Anyway, so you get a lot of that here, and that kind of tells a story. I mean, this guy's standing in a field of skulls. This guy here, he's standing on a black plastic disc. Not a lot of fun, but if you add a few skulls or a sort of arm or whatever and paint them up with the base, that's gonna be looking a lot better. So anyway, sword goes here. I mean, you could probably get away with gluing it on and then painting around it since it's not covering up, but I'm still gonna wait with it until later and then figure out what to do. Probably just quickly, you know, doing the blade and so on. The arm, however, is gonna get on. And now we get to the fun part of how do I glue these miniatures together. Probably not in a good way. I'm using standard super glue, and since I don't want it, you know, using this here on the small miniature, that never goes well for me. I get way too much glue onto the model, and then it spills out around the piece I'm trying to glue in, and that's when, you know, I glue my fingers together. So what I like to do is I like to take each part of it and just take a small stick, it could be a toothpick or whatever you have lying around, and just use it to dab on the glue. You see it's where it's shiny, and then do the same on the part you're gluing into place. Make sure you get down into the sort of the recess here, and even now I can see it got a little bit too much, but I can control it a lot better by using this stick here. And then when you put down your stick, make sure you don't place it flat down on your work surface, because if you do, it's probably not going to come off again. I guess you can figure out how I know that. Then with the super glue here, just wait, I don't know, 30 seconds, 20-30 seconds until it starts curing on either side, and then press them together for about 10 seconds. You can, you know, blow on them a little bit to speed up the process, but generally this is just as much about being patient before sticking them together as it is about being, you know, having a steady hand. Because if it started to bond and there's some kind of chemical process going on, I can't remember the word for it. So if it starts bonding, then it sticks easier when you put them together. If you have too much glue on, you'll find that it takes a long time for it to bond and dry off or whatever, and then you have to sit and hold it in place for maybe a few minutes if you're unlucky. So I'm just going to do this. You see it goes a little bit out to the sides. I can see that here. The glue is a little bit of excess glue going out, but nowhere near what I would get if I'd used, taken it directly from the bottle. So this fits quite nicely. So here, the next part is on his sides we have some stuff. I have no idea what goes where. As I said, I tried looking for the build instructions, and the build instructions for the monster hunters are for a different monster hunter. Oh, but see, there's a small hole in here. No. Yeah, no. There's a small hole in there. That looks like it might hold this. Yeah. So, not that difficult to figure out, but I mean, you still have to sort of be able to read the miniature and see. I did something really bad here, because I placed this on top of the glue, the small pool of glue I have here. But fortunately, since the cover is raised on the inside, it didn't actually get any glue on it, which is really nice, because otherwise I might end up gluing it onto the camera, onto the lens, which would be bad. So a little bit here, and now we're getting to the small parts that are so small that I'm probably gonna get some glue on my fingers, and that's when things get fun. So anyway, what have you guys been up to other than Rohan putting Malifaux miniatures on his wish list? So there we go. Oh, stickiness on my fingers. Never fun. Let's go for the head next. Just dump some glue in there. And again, with the glue here, it's a good idea to get all the parts inside the socket here covered nicely. At least I find that, because sometimes if it isn't a complete, fully perfect fit, you may have sort of a small gap between, the bits and pieces on the inside. So having a little extra glue might help it stick better. I'm not too worried with the head, considering how difficult it was to get it out again. But let's see if I can actually get it in. So that's the other part here. If I don't get this in quickly enough, I'm gonna end up gluing it in the wrong place, and that would also be bad. But I think it is. Yeah, there we go. You know what, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna pull in the camera a little closer so you can actually see it a little bit better. So it's starting to take form here. Got his head, he's got his arm, he's got one knife, and then we have the other knife. And the other knife goes somewhere. Goes here. I mean, this looks like something that would go there, maybe upside down. Oh, I know. This is it looks like a lip Molotov cocktail. That's yeah, sounds like a good idea to just glue that onto your belt, mister. I've got to find a picture of him, just simply to see where they are. Monster Hunter. get some pictures. There's one where he's actually painted. I simply need to figure out. Yeah, it does go in here. I'm looking at a picture of a painted miniature. And this does go on here, and you can see it does fit. It does fit there, but I'm gonna give it some glue anyway and just squeeze it real tight afterwards. So yeah. So yeah, now on the piece of paper here where I have my glue out, what I also do just to make sure that the glue doesn't just seep into the paper is that I actually just take a piece of tape, standard regular tape for gluing sticking pieces of paper together, and just put it on my surface, and then I put the glue onto that. That means that the glue will not seep into the paper, it'll not evaporate as quickly. It doesn't really bond with the tape, is my experience, and it just makes it last longer. Okay, so this is the part where my fingers are gonna get stuck to the miniature. No, maybe not. I say this, I know I keep saying it and it doesn't happen, but it's happens so many times, especially when doing the Malifaux miniatures, because they're really sort of really skinny. Again, compared to this guy here. I mean, it looks like one is 28 millimeters, one is 32. I can't remember if they are. But if you look at the bulk, the bulkiness, and the legs and stuff like that, you see one is sort of really sort of burly, classic fantasy, slightly somewhat exaggerated, huge arms, and the other is more sort of your average day-to-day human proportioned character model thingy, whatever. So his other knife goes on his other hip, I guess. Let's go back to the painting and see. Yeah, it's sitting a little further down. Oh, yeah, that was the sticky part. So it's sitting here. Yeah, that looks about right. So let's try that. Now the problem with the trick with using the tape for the glue is that after a while there's so little left, and I've used some of it, and some of it does evaporate or whatever it does. So it can be nearly impossible to see if there's any left. So I'm kind of sort of digging around blindly and seeing if I can just scoop up a little bit and just put it on this little piece here. And now for this, since it's so small, I will not be able to fit that with my butter fingers. So instead I will take some small pliers. They're really handy to have. I used to have several sets, like both straight and bend, like this. I'm happy I still have the bent ones, because they give me a little bit more room and flexibility for sticking this on to the model. And then just hold it down. Of course, it can also glue itself onto the yeah, it's called the pincer applier or whatever. So yeah, this is and now what's also giving me a little bit of problem here is that the bottle he has, the glue on the other side of that keeps sticking to my fingers, so I am kind of sort of gluing my fingers to the miniature. And there we go. Now at least it's sticking on its own. And there, we pulled it off. So yeah, so this is a part where we just have to accept that I'll be sitting here holding this in place for a little bit. and hoping the pliers don't get too stuck and that the glue binds properly. So yeah, there is that. This is of course the part where I get insanely thirsty. I think it's there. That we'll go with that and see if it sticks. So that is basically him done. Again, the sword goes down the back, but I'll wait with that until later, and hopefully I won't throw away the sword. So remember to hydrate, people, even though it's winter. Get some water, it's always good. Now what we can talk about then is perhaps my next choice of, I'm not going to put together the other monster hunters and that in a way. I want to go on with the new stuff because I want to assemble my new master. And then if my opponent, regular opponent, is watching, he will know what it is. If not, well, he can either watch the stream later on YouTube, or he can just get a surprise on the 28th. So my choice this time around for picking Toni Ironside, the Arcanist faction, was to get something that wasn't as shooty as Perdita is. And I mean, I love Perdita's blasting away with 6 shooters style. It's got really, really fun things to do. But her crew is generally speaking more about violence and shooting stuff than it really is about doing the schemes and strategies that Malifaux is really good at. Don't get me wrong, they can win. You win on schemes, you don't really win usually on killing your opponent, and you can easily, well, not easily, you can actually still win the game even though you don't have any models left on the table, because you score victory points every turn, play 5 turns. So you can, if you play well in the beginning, you can lose your entire crew, but you still win on the victory points. And that's something that I really like, and they've gone all in on that. As opposed to the few games of Kill Team I tried, killing stuff was way more important than the missions you had in Kill Team. So, and I think you also got points from shooting leaders and second in commands or whatever. So you could actually gain points by just annihilating and killing the other crew in Kill Team. Not so in Malifaux. You essentially, basically, normally you get nothing from shooting a model, other than, of course, other than the satisfaction of just unloading your 6 shooters, throwing dynamite sticks. Papa Loco, crazy guy on the crew, throwing dynamite sticks at people, watching them blow up. That is in itself satisfactory, but you don't really get any points for it. There are some schemes that can give you points for shooting up specific miniatures or models on the opponent's team. Like you choose someone that you have a vendetta against in the vendetta scheme, and if that miniature is killed, if it's different ways you can get points for it. So you see here with Ironside, she actually has a mold line going straight down the face. Let's see if I can catch it on camera. Come on. Yeah, you might be able to see it, running down over her forehead. You sort of see how the light catches it, and that's going to be really, really visible once she's painted. So when I was looking for crews, I already knew that I wasn't going to look at all the different masters and all the different options, because there's just way too many. As I mentioned earlier, 6 or 8 factions with about 6 or 8 masters if you're not counting the double ones. There's way too many options. You can build the crews in different ways, so I just kind of went with my gut feeling for most of this, and just went, I wanted to go with either resurrectionists because they have the whole sort of necromancer Herbert West style going, with added magic. But I also wanted to have something that could run some schemes, as it's said, something that can influence and control the board, not through threat of violence or shooting, but simply by their effects in doing it. And again, I have looked in the past week, I've looked at 6 or 8, I think about 6 different masters. So I can't remember all the details about Toni Ironsides and her crew, but they had stuff like the unionized thing, so they build upon each other. They give bonuses if they're near each other. Where is it? Yes, let's invest in this brew. So there was a lot of clear-cut synergy, and I'm still a novice at this game, so I really need something that I don't have to think too much about. I really just have to be able to see it fairly clearly. I've never been good at playing these strategy games, but I still find a lot of enjoyment through the stories you tell. To me, it doesn't really matter if I win or lose a game. It's more about, did it work well? Was it a fun game? What happened? Was there some trickery going on, either from me or from my side or from my opponent's side? What was the focus of the game? How did it go back and forth? How did I survive this huge mechanized horseman? Yeah, exactly. It told a good story. And then, yeah, sure, I may lose, 6 points to 8 or whatever, which is, losing by 2 points at that scale is a bit, or it can be a draw, like the last game I played was 5-5. But hey, it was a fun game, and I actually, after a pretty bad start and not getting any points, I still managed to pull off one of my schemes that my opponent had kind of guessed, but somehow didn't stop. So I pulled in the first round. I think my opponent got 1 or 2 points, or I think got 2 points in the first round, 1 point in the second. But in the second point, I went from 0 to 3 points, and that just evened out the game again. And even though there were some kills on both sides, that also sort of changes the balance a bit. Just having those, had the same number of points, all of a sudden put some pressure on my opponent. At least it felt that way, because then he was not winning the game. He was not sort of ahead as much. And since you reveal your schemes along the way, so your opponent doesn't know what it is in the beginning of the game. So, but when you do reveal it, then all of a sudden his priorities had to change, because if he did not shoot or kill or somehow get rid of Francisco, my close combat dude, if he didn't do that, then I would automatically gain an extra point at the end of the game. So he had 3 turns to catch up with Francisco and somehow kill him. Unfortunately, at this point, Francisco had already taken a beating, because he and Perdita completely failed at killing off someone that should just have died to them. So Francisco was down to 1 hit point left, which isn't a lot in this game. He starts at 8, I think. So he was basically dead already, but he still had to set aside resources, on his team to go do it. And those resources freed up the other side, so I had a little bit more freedom and space and room for maneuvering to be able to do some fun stuff. So yeah. So that's again, as I've said so many times, I really like the way Malifaux is put together, and it feels random if you hit or not, but it feels less random than rolling dice, because you're controlling everything through your deck. You have cards in your hand that you can use to cheat fate, as it's called. So you can, if you lose, let's say I'm shooting with Perdita and she doesn't hit, then I actually have the option of playing a card from my hand that changes the outcome. So it replaces the card I drew from my deck, But then of course I have one card less in my hand, and there are some effects like giving actions to other models. Depends from crew to crew, and it's just, yeah. And I can understand that, Wohan, you can't wait to play it, because it's a whole different game experience. I know I sound sort of totally in awe, but that's really because I am. The mechanics of this game and all the effects that come into play, I really have a hard time figuring out if it really is balanced or not, or if it just sometimes just feel like I cannot do anything, or if I'm just overlooking options. Yeah, fanboys, guess that's what I am. But yeah, but it's a cool game. One of the other masters that I looked at is called Karis, and she's got mechanical wings, flying around like an angel. It's kind of cool. And yeah, she's got what she's doing a lot of, and her crew is doing, is lighting people on fire. Then people will get a burning effect, and then at the end of the turn it's gonna hurt them, or some of the other models can use the burning effect to do other stuff with it and all that. So it's a lot of things going on there. But I wanted to go for the Union people here, because they have weird things going on. They get modifiers. They think they're gonna be fairly hard to kill as long as they stick together. Again, that's the theme of it. So and again, we have some mold lines running down this miniature here. So yeah. But yeah, there's one mold line here that we need to remove. The other mold lines are sort of worked into the way the cloth falls on the other side, so there's no point in doing a lot of work on that. So yeah. So the next thing about Malifaux that we need to somehow figure out is what to do now that the UK is leaving the European Union. And it actually looks like they are leaving it this time around and not just getting an extension like what's been happening before. And that's really a big deal, because most of the websites I've found that actually had miniature or Malifaux miniatures were in the United Kingdom. I think I found a German one, but it didn't look like they had a lot of stock. I hope that changes. It might just take care of itself actually, now that, yeah, with the Brexit and all. But still. So anyway, working on the legs now. Toni Iron sights, from what I can see, from the pictures and all that, really looks like she's kind of a boxer type, prime fighter. She's got this kind of stance going in. I think one of her special abilities is that enemy models that are locked in close combat with her cannot attack other models than Toni. So she actually, when she goes in, she kind of sort of throws a challenge or whatever to sort of lock the other models in combat. And then if you have sort of a squishy but sort of glass cannon type fighter, then you can send them in alongside her for maximum effect and still being pretty safe from harm with the other model. And then of course you add the whole the effect that's called unionized, where they get bonuses on their defensive rolls, which will affect them in close combat. If someone tries to hit them, they make a defensive draw, and they get a bonus on that. That's kind of cool. So, yeah, I look forward to trying her out. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna mess things up the first few games, but we'll see. And onto the final leg, and then I'll be gluing her together, and I think that's all we're gonna do for tonight. Again, it always takes me, I think, it feels like it takes me way too long to assemble the miniatures, but at the same time, the only way I could do it faster would be to either be less precise when scraping off the mold lines and things, or I could just not do it. But not getting rid of this here. Come on, camera, be nice. There you go. Not getting rid of that piece here would mean that the model wouldn't really fit well together, and then you would have small gaps between the leg and the body that it's glued onto, and that's actually also going to be fairly visible. So, but anyway, Wohan, are you up for some Vermintide afterwards? Or is it too late, too early? So how do we go about assembling Toni Ironside? I think, yeah, you can see, roughly speaking, this is what we need to do for her body and her legs. So I think what makes sense is this, because it's kind of large and the cutouts fit quite nicely, so that will allow me to hold it into place, and then once that is glued in, the other leg can sort of rest against her left leg, and well, it doesn't really rest against the right leg, but I have a little bit more room to hold on to the miniature. So let's get some more glue. You just reinstalled Vermintide there. Well, then we definitely have to go into the old world and destroy things. I actually found more ways that the elf is overpowered, and I have to agree with you. That I can no longer defend that class. No, it is overpowered. Still fun to play, don't get me wrong, but just the way she can go with ranged weapons, especially the ones where she's got 50 ammo in the I was about to say gun. Just 50 ammo, 50 arrows for her bow, and she doubles the ammo, so that's 100. But on top of that, at the level 30, it can be precisely. So I think when I'm playing it in group, it would be a really good idea to not shoot the people, shoot the enemies that people are just about to kill. Just fire into the crowd behind them. You may still get more kills, but at least you're not messing up other people's timing with that, and there's usually more than enough enemies to go from. No, but at level 30, the talent she gets allows her to, when she uses her special ability where she kills off somewhere between 8 and 10 people with that in one go, if one of them is an elite or a special, so I think Storm Vermin or Plague Monks, Globadiers, things like that count, then she gets 30% ammo back. So that's 30 more arrows for her when she uses a special attack to kill specials or elites. It is. And I tried it out. And I actually had a run on Veteran where I effectively never ran out. Because it just waited using the special ability until you get warp fire throwers or rattling guns and those kind of enemies. You just fire off the seeker arrows in their general direction. You will find them, kill them because they're so powerful. Yes, if you would just do that. I mean, on Veteran and probably also Champion, you're gonna run out of ammo a lot more, and I find that when I'm playing on Veteran, I use a bow a lot less. Still get an insane amount of kills because I'm using the double knives, so I have really fast melee attacks. But yeah, running out of ammo is, I mean, key to balancing her. So the fact that you, I mean, if there wasn't a bow that had 50 arrows to begin with, I mean, if I could only quote unquote only have the ones with like 20 or 30 arrows, then it wouldn't be as bad. It would be armor piercing, so I could, you know, use them to shoot at Chaos Warriors, for instance. That would be fine. I mean, then I could just shoot them at a range. But the ones I've seen that are armor piercing arrows, they only have 20 arrows. So now I'm down to 40, which means that I'm not gonna completely randomly fire into a group of Skaven slaves, because then each single arrow would be way too valuable to me to waste on a Skaven slave. And then we're back to melee weapons, and then we sort of level the playing ground. So anyway, that went well. And see, what you might be able to see a little bit here, the way she's standing, she actually has sort of a boxer's, you know, fighting pose. So yeah, I hope it stays more or less together. Should probably let it rest for a while before moving on to the arms. Nah, let's go for it. Here you can see the fighting style here. You know, she's got the wrapped wrists. She got the leather straps around her wrist and tied off, and got, you know, holding a nice block here. See, what pose do I want to get her in? I think I can drop down her hand a little bit. Not that far, just a tiny bit. Yeah, I'm gonna go for that. So yeah, so her running out of ammo once in a while, that happens on Veteran level. Yeah, because there's a lot less ammo lying around, and yeah, so but it's fun. But I actually found that playing her on Veteran level and going for the melee kills, I actually ended up experiencing what you experienced when you were playing with me, namely that I was timing the melee attack to be able to sort of stab people in the head, or doing the long attack with her, and I just see the enemy right in front of me just going down from a shot from one of the bots. I haven't played much with other people. I prefer playing games like this with people that I know in real life, or with bots, just random pickups. I don't know, I've just never liked that, because it's sort of remnants of social anxiety that I've had most of my life. That just means that knowing that somewhere there's a guy or girl, a person sitting out in the other end of the world, looking at what I'm doing, judging it and all that, it's been pretty tough for me. But if it's been someone I know, then at least I know who I'm dealing with, and yeah, that's me. That's how I work. Let's get her other arm in place. Again, see, just holding on. No, applying pressure, but not so much that my hands start to shake, because then it's never gonna stick. And after this, we just need to plop in her head, and then we're done. Yeah, don't think she has any other small bits and pieces. Now, as you can see here, it's a good point to see. If you look at her left arm, you see the ridge, small recess where the arm meets the blouse. Actually, also see it on the right arm a little bit there. If I was really meticulous, I would get some green stuff, which is sort of modeling clay that dries up hard without changing shape, and just fill in those gaps real gently to sort of soften it out a little bit. But can't be bothered. That's more work than I want to put into this. So let's just fill up here. I should have done a dry fit on the head to see how it actually fits, but I didn't. So let's just go for it. I mean, it's just the head, and it's pretty clear cut where it fits. And yet it isn't. Okay, so let's go take a look at the instructions. Great, just said head goes straight down. This head goes straight down, but that doesn't look right. So onto another picture of her. Just to get a feel for her pose on the miniature. How her head is sitting is kind of angled forward. Just a little bit. Yeah, that will probably work. But see, again, because it doesn't really fit that well, the glue is having a bit of a hard time actually sticking. So I may need to do something about that. I can see, kind of have a pool of glue there. I'm just going to try slowly counting to 30 in my head and see if that works. But that is so boring. So, but other than the head, things. No, see, again, it's really not sticking. Why is that? Or is it simply because I just need more glue in here? Yeah, I think it is. It kind of seems like it's only sort of catching on to the sides of the head, which isn't really what we want now, is it? So I'm just going to pour in a bit more glue, but that's also going to take more time until it settles, dries, whatever it does, bonds. Gonna add more glue to the sides of the neck. More glue and more glue and more glue eventually means that it will spill out and may affect the details of the miniature. So yeah. But other than that, I mean, we are coming up on the end of the stream here. So let's see if we have anyone available for raiding. Well, we have one of the guys who raided me last Sunday, a guy called Rage X. He is, as far as I could understand, I think he's British. He's playing Fall Guys. So I think I'll return the favor. It wasn't through his account, it was through someone else. But I may as well just bounce over there in a little bit. But first we need to make sure that Toni Ironside's head is screwed on nicely. It seems to be sticking a little bit better. But anyway, I mean, here she is. I hope you can see the fighter stance in her, and I also kind of figured that was pretty cool because she's got a lot of fight in the crew. It's not purely control or scheme running or anything like that. It's still kind of cool, kind of fun. They have some special effects, but they can still fall back on some heavy duty, just punch up the other guys. I kind of like that. I don't get too far out of my comfort zone. But with that being said, I will say thank you for joining, and if you stick around, which I hope you do, we'll head on over to RageRex94 to see what he's up to in what's it called, in Fallout or Fall Guys. It's called Fall Guys. Fall Guys is this fun little game. I've never played it, but I've seen a lot of people play it. It has simple graphics, lots of fun, and it's basically about yeah, I don't know, trying to get your small little dude, your Fall Guy, to complete the level faster than other people. Got wonky controls and stuff like that, and well, people seem to have fun playing it. So we will go there, and thanks for dropping by, and as always, keep painting.
Thanks for the raid, Scum. How you doing, bud? Were you streaming? I saw you were streaming some art. What did you stream? Were you painting more figurines? How did it go? I do not have the patience that you have, honestly. I'd get so annoyed if I made like the tiniest mistake.
I don't think I'm gonna.
Oh, okay, you can. Hey, I was gluing my fingers together this time. On purpose or by accident? Or, well, I didn't. Oh. Yes! Did you put festive decorations in your beard? That's what you should do for a special Christmas episode of your streams.
Let's do this again.
Baubles, glitter,